Incredible. I'm going to change it to speaker view. And I just wanted to say that if you have a question throughout the presentation, feel free to either put it in the chat or unmute yourself and ask in real time. Also, like if you are like willing and able, it'd be great to have your cameras on just so we can see your lovely faces, but totally understand if you're not comfortable with that. But yeah, questions throughout the chat are great, especially as Chris is going to go over some really interesting topics. I know as we spoke about it yesterday, I had a bunch of questions, so feel free to put them in and I'll read them out, or just unmute yourself. And if it's all right, Chris, I can read your bio.
Oh, absolutely.
So Chris Cray is an animator and director based in London, UK. His work is digitally hand-drawn with an emphasis on bold design, well-crafted motion, and quirky character performances. He studied fine art and the history of art at Goldsmiths, University of London, and character animation at Central St. Martin's, University of the Arts, London. He has directed and animated commercials, short films, apps, sitcoms, and music videos, and he is the founder of the animation studio Somesense. And with that, I'll let you take it away.
Wonderful. It's great to chat with you about this. So today, it's a topic that I've been interested in a long time, optical illusions. And a little over a year ago, I started thinking about how I could serve and add to and push forward optical illusions with animation. So here are some wonderful illusions, all of which are 2D hand-drawn, and the tricks of the illusions are all based on ambiguities of drawing. So we've got a line or a shape being able to be interpreted in more than one way, and you've got a negative space like the white of the page being able to be interpreted more than one way. And so, you know, the joy of these images that, like, we all know them. They're almost public domain, most of them. They're often a sort of an unknown artist. So they're a bit like folk songs or street jokes, which similarly to street jokes, they function on the basis of, you know, like a word that can be interpreted in more than one way. These are an image or a line that can be interpreted in more than one way. So I always knew and loved the duck and the rabbit, and we've got some geometry that you can see as being above you or below you, and then we've got some figures interacting with the geometry on the staircase. And it's that sort of, it's adding those figures in that dramatizes the trick of that geometry. That's something that I wanted to do, which is to say the figures didn't need to be there. That dramatization is just really shows all the joy of the illusion. So I thought if I added in some animation and I took the tricks of the page and then added in that big bag of tricks of animation, then, you know, maybe something really enjoyable would come out of it. And I didn't quite know what would come out of it, but it was definitely a fun thing that I wanted to explore. So a well-known illusion is a figure that looks simultaneously like, you know, what could be interpreted as a younger woman facing away from us, or an older woman facing towards us. And it relies on interpreting the nose as a chin, the chin nose. We've also got the neck and choker, which can also be seen as a mouth. And the ear that is drawn in sort of an ambiguous way, that can be an eye. We've also got a feather, but the feather doesn't do anything. The feather is a feather in both of them. So when I did my interpretation, I decided to make it quite graphic. I pared it down so that maybe it was sort of more in line with my design sensibility. Also, I knew that I was really comfortable animating those shapes, and also just getting to the crux of what I enjoyed about that illusion. And when I looked at the illusion, I thought, well, this is an incredible image. It's exactly halfway between being these two figures. And when you look at how animation can serve it, animation is all about in-betweens. So if we treated this well-known illusion as an in-between drawing, then it fits with the rubric of how animation functions. And it gives me a task. And my task was to imagine the key drawings that illusion was the imaginary in-between. So I had some fun fleshing out what this would be like. So if this is a chin, here's the front-on faces. And I started, here's a little process video. Now, Zoom is a bit glitchy when it comes to streaming videos, so it might not be in its full glory, but I think you'll get something from it either way, which is that whole process right through to the end. And then we come to the final animation, which I was able to see another avenue that I could push the illusion forward, which is that, say now the illusion is the in-between drawing, and we add two key drawings on either side that we animate between. Why not explore the dimensionality and these new characters that came out of it, something that was left to our imagination has now been fleshed out. So in this, I have them shouting, but it's just an excuse to explore their facial anatomy and have them do a bit of character acting, or at least character animation. So here is the final animation. Now, I chose 4 illusions to animate, all of which the basis of the decision was that they all function differently. Like these all, they couldn't be based on like, they all couldn't be like based on interpreting an ear as an eye. I'll explore that once. So this one, here's the original illusion, which is one image that when rotated is seen as two faces. One face, one drawing of a face that's interpretable as two faces. And it's got some really charming ambiguities to it. And it's sort of taking facial anatomy and using it as an excuse to be super playful with how that can be interpreted differently. So we've got the eyes have to be dead center. Well, center-ish, and the ears can't, the top of the ears can't line up with the eyes. We have to have everything symmetrical so it can rotate. And then we have the big one is nose. What is a nose? Here we've got the hairline is the upside down nose, and the line of the forehead is the other nose. Is the mouth underneath, and then we've got another mouth hidden in the hair. So I went and interpreted that this way. And it was really fun to do this, but I was already coming up against a hurdle in my let's add to this with animation, because in a way, as it stands, this doesn't need animating, because you can animate it yourself by taking an image and rotating it around. Like, so me having fun exploring those ambiguities isn't necessarily adding anything to it. But then I realized that you've got one image that when rotated is two faces. Now, how about if we take that one image and animate it two different ways? So for each rotation, it's actually a totally different like facial construction, and the dimensionality of that face is totally different. So when you're seeing it as a flat forehead line, the dimensionality is that of a flat forehead. When you're seeing it when it's rotated, when you see it as a nose, that's got some very different like protruding dimensionality. So I had something to animate and something to add to the situation. And here is my line animation. It's a bit rough, a bit clean. This is where I landed with the line animation. And we can see what's happening here. And we've got a little bit of morphing going on. I think with it, I wanted the whole time to be really true to the illusions. And the nature of this illusion is one drawing, you rotate it, you interpret it two different ways. But you know, that hair, the mouth in the hair, that's got to be a broken line. But when it comes down and it moves, we needed to morph it. I needed to morph it into a closed line. But other than that, I got to stay pretty true to it and sort of enjoy it, push it and enjoy it in a slightly different way. I added color to it, and unlike the previous animation, I got to have whites of the eyes because the ambiguity didn't rely on the white of the page being ambiguous. This could have whites of the eyes. The highlight in the middle of the eye, though, that was another one like the ears, where it had to be dead center, because otherwise you really saw, why is this highlight right in the bottom of the eye? So here's that finished animation. Now, the next one's really different. Here it is. It is, I mean, you can see it's a sequence of drawings, sequential drawings showing the morphing of a head into a full figure. And it's just ingenious and wonderful. And you see how they're playing with, you know, a closed eye turning into a fold underneath the shoulder. We've got a mouth turning into the top of thighs, and the, you know, sort of best of all, this head of hair turns into a head and some hair. It is wonderful. And but yet again, like the previous one, it's animated. It's basically animated. We have, I mean, because it's on the page, we have to animate it with our eyes by moving in sequence across and following it change. But, you know, if you view it that way, if you look at it that way, it's sort of already animated. What can I add to the situation? So I thought, well, for starters, nobody's shot these drawings and spaced them out, and let the animation that already exists, you know, play in as a film. So I started with that. So here is the animation. It's a bit pixely because that was the source imagery, and it's shot on 8s because there aren't that many what would be in between drawings. Not that the artist was thinking of them as in between drawings using that animation terminology, but the timing worked in my view when held for 8 frames. Here it is. And I thought that was incredible, especially since that artist had never seen that animated. It held up 100%. And it's got this sort of joyful wiggle and wobble as it moves between, you know, it's amazing. Yet again, what can I add? And I settled on, I can add some color. And in a way, I can hurt the illusion with some color, in the sense that this one relies heavily on the white of the page. Like, there's this space, which is the space between the thigh and an elbow, or as you can see, for me, the nose and the upper lip. And that's either a negative space or a positive space. So I had to fill it with some stubbly color, and that covered that. And even then I had to animate the color changing, but that was an enjoyable challenge. And then the rest of it, I thought that some parts of that sequential drawing had joyful bits of ingenuity that we could enjoy further if the animation were a little smoother. Like, I love its organic life, but in a way, for me, it distracted from how some bits of it were working. So I thought I'd lean into how it was functioning, and really, like, in focusing on exactly how the shoulder is turning into an eye, we'll get a lot from it, or I get a lot from it. So here's my frames that I came up with. And you can see them, the rough animation, similar before, the line animation, how it's animating. And like before, another part of how I could help, how I could add to it, thank you very much, was that it's that subtle rotation. So yet again, so if the head was the same drawing, I mean, it's so pared down and pure, it's like one drawing rotated around, which sparks the idea of different figure, different dimensionality in our minds. Now, this one's similar. It's a morph that is very similar, but even though it's a morph, the dimensionality of it is so different that it does bear looking at rotating around. So, you know, that nose versus that elbow. And here's
can you play it again? Sorry, it would be, I'd like to see it again. I know you're going to play the final, but keep it looping.
Oh my gosh, please, let's keep it with the lines.
Interesting.
Please. And so I quite like this, the lines, because I have quite a scratchy, I don't draw lines in a fluid way. Like, I sort of chip away at the line. And I think lots of people that draw a bit like your handwriting, you enjoy it because you see yourself in it. So I always like my roughs, because whilst I don't always feel that that line style will serve the animation that I'm trying to make, I enjoy the stage where it was the last time I see the truth of how I actually think about drawing in my mind. And here is the final animation. Now, when I put it in a sequence, you'll later see it in a sequence, I had a darker background. This one's working better because that negative space between that upper lip, elbow section, it's not that different. So that was quite satisfying. Last illusion, the Penrose stairs, which I first encountered in Escher's Ascending and Descending. And this looping animation on the right is something I did almost 10 years ago, because for the same reason, just I saw it, I thought, let's pare it down, let's make it move. I love the animation so much, I love the illusion so much that I wonder if dramatizing it and having it moving will add anything. And for me, I really enjoyed it, but I left it there And in coming back to this project, I learned that this was actually Escher was adding to an existing illusion, not to draw a parity between me and Escher, but it was adding his art, his personality, his interpretation to an existing illusion. So I thought, well, okay, great. Well, I'll go back to the original Penrose staircase, and I'll do something with that, with my sensibility and the characters. I'll do, obviously, I'm going to stick some characters on top. I'm going to take it in the same direction, but I'll start from the source and then take a similar trip. I was so pleased that it was these mad square stairs, because Escher made stairs like we all have, rectangular stairs, whereas the original illusion is like a staircase like no one has, which is these big square stairs. So that was already fun. And it's isometric, which I love. Isometric paper. I don't know if you've encountered isometric paper. I mean, you can do it with the squared paper and draw the isometric lines yourself, but it's quite fun having isometric paper, and it's available at a high street stationers. So it feels like such a niche thing. Maybe I'm missing whole professions that use this, but for me, it seems pretty niche and I like it. So, and I came to a realization with this that I wanted to make a pretty concise loop. The character, if I'm putting a character on it, needs to make 2 steps in order to get back and loop. But I realized that with the original illusion, those 2 steps, I couldn't just make a 2-step loop. Let's say that could be 16 frames or 24 frames. Because there's an odd number and a lot of steps, that loop just started stretching in front of my eyes. And I looped it, and it's like, when does it actually loop back to that original drawing so I can really loop it? And it was like a minute later. So I had to remove one of these steps so that each step could have an even number of steps on it, and they would all be an even number. And then suddenly the loop started functioning. This is my sketch with a little character. And here is a style frame. Here's an animation frame. I think this is my process video. So in the same way that I made a little process video for the young and the old illusion, this is going to trace that process that I talked about. And I also thought it would be fun just to animate those stairs morphing, so that when I remove the step, because I went through something when I had to remove that step, and now you can too. So here it is. And this is something that's only satisfying to animators or people that just like concision, but that is now like a stone cold 16 frame loop. That's all it is.
Can you play it once more?
Yeah, sure. Let's see if I've got, do you want the process video?
Yeah, I enjoyed the process video.
Okay, cool. And it's fun. And there were some added little bits of fun, which is making a cute character and rotating their head, having the little legs going, and also there are some little oddities which just happen when you plan something out based on isometric paper rather than a character. Usually if I'd have a character walking up steps, I'd be thinking as the character. I'd only be thinking about what the character wanted to do. I'd be completely in their shoes. But here, I mean, I'm all about the isometric paper. This character has to serve the isometry and nothing else. So it meant that some of the poses were really strange. I quite enjoyed that, especially the people. I'm going to go back one. So you can't see it, but there are some people in the corner where their legs are just completely twisted over because they just had to hit that pose. And that's what this project is about. We can get whatever drawings come, they come. It's just about hitting that illusion. That is all the illusions. There's a little bit more I'd like to say about just this project was a joy because it was about taking something that was already completely self-contained and wonderful, completely functioned, didn't need anyone's help, least of all mine. It'd been working wonderfully for hundreds of years. And then I thought, I'll have some fun. So given that I was adding things, why not continue adding things? So now that I've got these 4 illusions, let's put them together in a sequence. Now, let's put them together in a sequence using some more tricks. So the sequence. It came down to more than this, but here's what the sequence needed, which is to get between these characters' faces. And so oh, come on, sequence. So it has the Penrose staircase character, a sort of an odd in-between that favors the rotating head character, rotating head character morphing with ghostly veil and ghostly shoulders of double-faced woman who then loses the color of her clothing, closes her eyes, loses her eyelashes, her veil morphs into her head, and now she's the body in the morph. So that was pretty fun to do. And I've got the sequence as an animation with the little loops, but now with these interstitial morphs that are mapped out on this page. And it's got some wonderful music by Hinako Amori, who is a composer and musician working with synthesizers primarily and sound design. And given that there's this sort of an otherworldly quality to these, and it's also very much synthesizing in the literal sense of the word, like taking elements, putting them together. Her sensibility was a wonderful fit, and it was incredible to work with her. So here's the sequence. And that last bit is, thank you so much, is a bit of shameless promotion of Somesense, which is our independent animation studio based in London. So it could end on the castle, but why not have our S shape come out of it? So that was really fun to do too. And, oh, I'm not playing that again. Now, that's a lot of adding to it. We've got the illusions, we've added. So we thought, well, let's add some more. Let's show it to people. So we showed it as a virtual reality exhibition. And we thought about just getting a VR space on a VR platform. But, I'm quite a sensitive person. I'm quite sensitive to spaces, and sounds, and lots of things. And I think I've chatted lots of sort of people who work in the arts, and that sensitivity is maybe something that means that you lean into created spaces and created worlds at various points. I definitely did. So, but weirdly enough, when I found these created spaces of the VR platform, I hated them. I hated being in them. They were horrible spaces to be in. The lighting was all wrong, and I felt sad, like I was in a basement. So we thought we'd make our own. And we had a space in the sense of this sort of castle that was in the Penrose staircase. So we thought, why don't we hold it in the Penrose staircase? So we imagined sticking the illusions in this space. And yes, if it's a 3D VR space, the illusion doesn't function. But we thought we'd stick the characters in the illusion up overhead, even though it's a 2D illusion. It doesn't work in 3D, but it was still fun to do. So instead of actually doing the impossible illusion, they go down, they go up. So I've got a little walkthrough of the exhibition. Now the exhibition, I'm new to VR, so I worked with Sophie Vickers, who's studying at the RCA, experimental animation, specializing in virtual reality, in VR experiences, fusing 2D and 3D, which when I encountered her work and I knew that this was coming up, I knew I needed to work with her. And so that was an absolute joy. And so I got to do some rough sketches and wave my arms around and give her the assets. And she just made the most amazing work. And this was great. And Hinako Omori, who did the sound design and the music composition, she made some more music for this walkthrough. So here it is. Oh, this is a little bit of in the program. But let's oh, you got to be an avatar in it. So this is some when you go around, you have to pick one of these characters. And as promised, here's the walkthrough. So you see they go up and down rather than around. That's the best we could do. Now, I can fast forward this because I feel like you've seen these illusions before.
No, it's wonderful to see them again.
Okay. More shameless promotion. And little details, little castle details. So if you added in some doors, flickering candles, and then we go into the screening room with the characters enjoying popcorn and some drinks, and then into the sequence you've seen. So now I will skip through this and say thank you. Thank you so much for
that was incredible. That was incredible. Thank you so much. Yeah, this was like really, really wonderful. And I appreciate you like breaking it down and showing us like the inspiration and then also like the line work and how you made these decisions. If you guys have questions, like please feel free to like unmute and ask, or I'll read them out if you want to pop them in the chat. I would like to hear a little bit more about your experience in picking colors, because you did touch on like how important the white space is in serving the optical illusions when they're just like images. And so I wanted to hear, while animating, how difficult it was to pick which colors would also help serve the optical illusion and not take away from it.
Absolutely. So I see these illusions as really otherworldly, and that brings up different connotations, but different lighting conditions with slightly unexpected colors, I think, play to what's going on here. You know, we're in another space. These things are functioning differently. So if you get really quotidian colors, then, I mean, maybe that's going to add to it. But I feel like we need to announce, like, we're in another worldly space. We're in sort of a dimension, you know, like that sets the tone for me more with these sort of like these sort of nuclear yellows and sort of post-radiation pinks and you know, and magical purples.
Incredible. In the chat, Laj asked, Laj wrote, insanely cool stuff. Have you ever thought about working in 3D for these other than the VR exhibition and actually doing some of these illusions in 3D?
Yeah. So yeah, of course. The thing about these illusions is these are 2D illusions. You get 3D illusions, but the whole thing about these is that I mean, the way to do it is you'd have to build it twice. So the 3D element of it would have to function in the same way as the 3D and the 2D, i.e. like, so 2D animation can describe a 3D space, so you can have, i.e. you can have dimensionality, you can get sort of dimensional camera moves in 2D, except that is being processed through the mind of a 2D animator rather than through, a computer or in stop motion by actually building it in a computer or physically. But yeah, I guess the reason that I hit it with 2D is that I'm a 2D animator, and because these illusions were conceived in 2D. So I think it's a closer jump. But now that I've got these as working with 3D dimensionality as 2D, I wouldn't put it past myself to, over the next couple of years, sort of build out some of these things and enjoy those dimensionality with all the things that 3D can offer, like, beautiful shadows and everything else. And I bet that it'll be another layer of obstacles to put, but that's the joy of it. So I think that I don't even know what the fun difficulties and obstacles of doing it in 3D will be yet. All I know is that the Penrose staircase is out, because that is definitely 2D. So there we go.
Amazing, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Lisha, thank you, can't wait to see. And then Amanda asked, curious if you have any tips for how you work curious if you have any tips for how you work out your morphing.
Absolutely, for sure. So morphing, okay, so I think of 2D hand-drawn animation as being on the verge of morphing with every single drawing you're doing. Like, a lot of 2D character animation are people desperately trying not to morph. Like, I think it's harder. I think most of the animation, most of the you're trying not to have, like, if you've got a character that's head's rotating around, 2D animation, hand-drawn animation is inherently such an unstable medium that you're desperately trying to hold it together. So really, I think it's already there. And so if you just imagine if somebody was like, if it was an industry job, like a commercial project, you plan it out exactly the same way that you plan out like any piece of animation. It can be as sort of rigorous and by the book, or as intuitive if you like. But ultimately, let's say you have two poses. Instead of it being like on model, it's like as far away from being on model as possible. But you still use all the same principles from getting from A to B. A to B would usually be on model drawing 1 and on model drawing 2, but this is like drawing 1, completely different drawing 2, but you'd still break it down in the same way that you can chart it if you want, or use any approach as to spacing it out. I quite like that process of polishing an animation where it can get quite smooth where it needs to, especially in this situation where it's a really uncanny thing you're doing, and like you're breaking no rules. There are no rules, but you're breaking someone's rules. You're breaking some animators' hearts in doing it, in having like this nose line just sort of crawl across the page. So I find that there's a joy in like doing that in a really smooth way, because you can watch this thing that's really uncanny and strange be quite slick. So that's a little kick I got out of it. Does that answer your question? Please do unmute if you want to dig into that anymore, because I'm happy to talk about it.
No, I think that answered it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, amazing. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? We're almost at the 45-minute mark,
Perfect.
Chris. So it's like great point. Yeah, I just also wanted to say too, when we spoke, it was really interesting hearing you talk about thinking about these optical illusions of constantly being in an in-between state. And I'm curious to know like how you were confident in picking like keyframes or like start and finish points too, especially as some things continuously morphing to maintain the illusion. I don't know if you'd be able to speak more on that.
Sure. One of the things, okay, so as animators, we've got our own work, and conceiving of that is a whole thing. And sometimes it's a struggle. And I find this strange effect when I come to a commercial project, especially one where there are already designs, because something about the way my brain is wired, I just believe whatever's in front of me. So you'll have a character of an avocado with arms and legs, and it's drawn from one angle. But I see that and I entirely believe in that character. And in my mind's eye, I can sort of feel the dimensionality of it. If I wanted to, I could probably sculpt it a little bit. You know, I just believe it. I believe it maybe more than my work, because I know what went into that work. But it coming to me as a fait accompli, I just believe it. So with these, I just lent into that. So you take the that double face where it flips over. There's a part of my brain that just feels like it knows. Now, obviously, it doesn't. It does to the extent that I can work on other people's projects, and even if they've not got like a full model sheet, they'll see what I'll do with the dimensionality of that figure as plausible. So I have a little bit of like the confidence of some years' experience to do that. So, and like I said, there are no rules. No one's going to tell me I'm wrong. So I just got to go wild with it and sit there with that drawing, like maybe with the old and the young sort of drawing, with this new face in front of me, and go, okay, pleased to meet you. You know, is this applause? Is this the right one? Is this what that nose looks like? But I could. It's the strangest thing. Like when I see that original illusion, I feel like, and I think it's something which I don't think I always had it. I think it's something that working as an animator for many years kind of does to you, where I felt like I could walk around the side of that illusion and see a face. So I just drew that face.
Incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, if there's no more questions, like we can call it there. I'll give it another minute. There's Miguel said, I have no questions. I just wanted to say it was brilliant. I felt like a little kid again, gawking at the whole process as I did when I saw the whole piece. It's a lovely comment.
That's the best feeling. Aren't we all trying to return to that feeling?
Yeah.
Come on now.
Well, like, how about we end on that note? I just wanted to say a massive thank you to you, Chris, for not only taking time out of your weekend to present to us, but also share this with us. I think a lot of times animators, we try to encapsulate movement, and that can be really hard to think out, especially in the context of something being an optical illusion. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for the lovely presentation and the breakdown of your process.
Oh, it was an absolute pleasure.
Alrighty. There will be an announcement. Next week's going to be a little bit different. On Tuesday, we're going to have a late night work sesh. So if you guys are, anyone's interested in coming onto Zoom just to meet and chat, meet animators from around, we're going to do that because we don't have a host next week. But then the week after that, we'll be back to regular programming. So yeah, thank you all so much for coming. And I hope you have a lovely rest of your weekend.
Great to see you. Thanks so much.